Welcome to We Run This Town podcast, the official podcast of Gulf Winds Track Club, serving our area runners for almost 50 years. Our podcast is designed to support our runners in the Big Bend area, whether you're a beginning runner or an elite runner, offering education, entertainment, and encouragement on all topics running. Let's get running with today's episode. Really thrilled to be spending some time today with a couple friends, Felton, Wright, Robert Skrob. We're going to talk about all things Tallahassee Marathon, half marathon and relay. And, as we mentioned, if we can bring some benefit to all of our listeners, whether you've done one marathon or 200 and something marathons or none, we're going to talk about everything from training to the history of the race, where the race is, who's going to race it, when they're going to race it, everything. So let's get running with today's episode. I'm going to let each of you just kind of briefly introduce yourself, for our listeners that may not know you, your background from an endurance sport kind of thing, and maybe professionally what you do or did in some people's reference there, and then your current involvement with the club. And Robert, I'll start with you.
Oh, well, Felton should get honors. He actually won the Tallahassee Marathon. Yeah. I am an adult onset runner. I was a couch potato for most of my life, and then started running when I was 39 and kind of fell in with this really group of misfits within Gulf Winds Track Club that really glorify running and health and doing good things for yourself and others. And it's really been a bad influence. And so it really, I remember looking at gulfwinds.org photographs of the marathon. I think it was probably 2011. And it was cold that morning, and for some reason it felt like that would be a great idea now that I was a runner to try to work my way up. So I started running, and then because of all of the volume of running, we decided to do some triathlons, my wife and I, and then we started doing that. And now I've done 3 Ironman races, and both of us have run the Boston Marathon. She actually qualified. I found it a lot easier to raise money for a charity spot than actually qualify myself.
Yeah.
But so it's been a blast being able to be a person who runs as we travel around the world and be able to see areas. It's an actual gift that I really appreciate every time I'm able to do it.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert. And professionally, what do you do?
I do marketing for subscription businesses and also do association management and nonprofits as well.
And your primary focus on the race, what role?
I'm actually race director this year for my wife. My wife and I are actually race directors for the Tallahassee Marathon this year.
Exciting. We're going to dig on
I suppose.
that. We are. Yeah, and I appreciate you being humble because, I've been able to compete with you in the last few years since I've joined the triathlon ranks. And I know at Clash Endurance, you made me look slower than I've ever looked before, so thanks for that. In my hometown, by the way. But so
I got to put some into you for the swim and the bike because you were, I think, about 6 minutes faster on the 5K than I was, so I had to get every piece I can get.
Well, speaking of running, although also an Ironman over here, Felton, give us a little bit. Tell our listeners a little more about you.
Well, I kind of grew up running. I started when I was 16 and ran in high school, ran in college, moved back to Tallahassee in 1980 and got involved with the club then. Have directed numerous races over the years with my wife, met my wife through the club, have raced competitively in Gulf Winds almost majority of my life now for a long time. Yes. I'm an old guy now. I has been. But it's a great lifestyle. My wife and I directed the marathon for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. I've been involved in the executive committee for, I think, the last 8 years of the marathon. And so it's been exciting to see it grow like it has. And, we are very grateful for Robert stepping up and taking over.
Yes.
And Corey, because it is a lot of work, and it's getting to be a lot more work each year as the race continues to grow.
But if you'd like to be race director, it actually really isn't too bad.
I'm good.
Well, if anybody is listening and would like the challenge, we would love to have you.
Yeah.
Like I told Robert, it's a job he can't get fired from.
I'm trying.
Those unpaid jobs, it's like that, right? And Felton, too, recently retired, right?
Recently
Professionally, what did you do?
I ran a financial planning group in Merrill Lynch, 10-person team, retired in March, and so I'm enjoying not having to run at 5 a.m. and can now run at 7 a.m.
Or 10 if you want.
Or 10 if I want.
There you go. Yeah, and again, you're a little humble pie, and I appreciate it, but you're a Hall of Famer, Gulf Winds Track Club Hall of Famer, and I don't know, you did something called 50 States, where apparently you run a marathon in every state, right?
If you can't play golf, you got to find a hobby, right?
Yeah. So for our listeners' sake, to have the two of you, it's a pleasure. So thanks for being here today. Bank of America, Tallahassee Marathon, half marathon relay, they are our official sponsor this year. Before we get into a lot of the history and changes of today's race and again, talking about training eventually, but for our listeners, let's go ahead and tell them where they can find whatever information they need about the race, number one, so they can register, so they can know where it is and when it is. Where can they find it, Robert?
All the information you need is at TallahasseeMarathon.com, and between that website and our run sign up, it gets you signed up for the race and up to date on everything you need for race day.
Okay. I registered.
Nice.
This morning.
We'll be glad to have you.
I did it, yeah, because I think the registration fees go up when?
They go up at the end of this month at November 30th. So you definitely want to get in to get the best pricing.
That's right, yeah. So the race estimated, and we'll get into more detail, but if you know last year's race, how many participants did we have? Do you remember?
Yeah, there was 1,300 the year before, and we were up to about 2,300, 2,400 last year.
Exciting. One trend from marathon running that you could share right now before we get into the history of this race, what would it be?
Young people are really enjoying running half marathons, full marathons at an incredibly record number. And really the Tallahassee Marathon and half marathon are seeing that trend with a very large percentage of the registrants at 25 and under. And they are excited and thrilled. I've gone to FSU a couple times. We have a lot of younger groups that are participating, and they are excited about the race in a way that I haven't seen young people come out to a race in a long time. It's a lot of fun to see.
And that's great news, right? I mean, I've done a beer mile a few times. They seem to like those too, but this is on the other end, which is surprising. Right?
I think one of the interesting statistics is, the growth has occurred in the half marathon, which is about 65% female, primarily under age 35, whereas the marathon, the growth is about 65% male on the older side. Okay. So the demographics between the two races have changed over the years.
Interesting. Thanks for that. And last piece too on here, the expo.
Yeah, the expo is going to be at the Dunlap Champions Club. And so it'll be a fun atmosphere that will be larger. You can grab your bib and have a photo in front of the field as a Bobby Bowden Field as a way of kicking off your race. And so particularly, we have for the Tallahassee Marathon, half marathon, we have folks travel from 40 different states, and I think it's actually folks travel from 40 different counties in Florida and 37 different states for the race. And so it'll be really neat to have people from out of town have that FSU stadium experience. Yeah. And the stadium's been remodeled, so if you haven't been able to make it for a game, it'll be great to be able to see it.
So let's kind of talk a little bit about the history of this marathon. I think it was sometime in the 70s, the first one, but let's talk a little bit about, all the different locations, maybe some records, but the history. Where do you go to, Felton, if you could tell us about that?
Well, the Tallahassee Marathon has a lot of history. The first one was run, it was just two guys on Natural Bridge Road that decided in 1975 that they wanted to run a race. But this will be the 51st year of running. And if you I've looked at the statistics, there are only 16 marathons in the country that have been run continuously for over 50 years. Now, that's ignoring COVID because everybody had to miss a year in COVID.
Right.
But there's less than 40 around the world that have a 50-year history. So when you look at Chicago, Marine Corps, L.A., New York, they don't have a 50-year history. So the fact that Tallahassee does is fairly unique.
Yeah.
In terms of the course, I think it's been changed 11 times over the years. And almost every time that it's been moved because of safety of runners. I mean, construction, new issues with traffic. And as the race is grown, it's become a little more logistically challenging.
Yeah.
And this year will be a new course again for the same reasons that the police couldn't handle the old course.
Right.
So it has changed over the years. I don't think we had prize money until about 10 years ago. I think the course record is like 225, if I'm not mistaken. And it's hard to compare records because some of the courses have been much more difficult than other. We've had pancake flat courses when it just went down the trail and back, or tram road. We've had, I think the worst course, or the hilliest course, was when it started at Tallahassee Nurseries and finished. And there was 4 different 250-foot climbs in the last 2 miles.
Give me a rough estimate of when that was.
2002.
Okay, yeah. I didn't start running them until 2009.
Yeah, that was probably the worst. I mean, there were hills in Killarney. It's been in Killarney Estates. It's been out on Tram Road. It's had a number of versions downtown. It's been in the natural forest. So it's been all over the place, but it's always been the Tallahassee Marathon. And the half marathon, I don't think the first one was until like 1985, and then we had a number of years where we didn't have a half.
Okay. Do you have a favorite year? I mean, how many have you done? How many have you done?
I've done 15 of them. I've won it outright twice, and then probably my favorite was running with a good friend, Ronnie Godwin, where we ran step for step the whole way, and then we held hands and crossed it. We tied for once also. So that was awesome. Pretty cool to have a good friend run with that that.
I saw that happen recently. Similar cross-country race. The kids did rock, paper, scissors coming to the finish to decide which one would go across the finish line. Right. Y'all didn't do it. You held hands.
We just held hands.
That's good. Yeah.
We don't have it. There was not a photo finish opportunity back then.
Polaroid. So when was that?
Which one?
The hand-holding race. Yeah.
I think that was the Tallahassee Nursery one. That was 2001. I think it was 2001.
What was your time?
On that course that day, it was like 3 hours. That was way slower than any course, just because that was the most difficult.
And then your PR over the years at Tallahassee Marathon would be what?
A PR at Tallahassee was 240.
Okay.
And run a little faster other places, but yeah. Sure.
Robert, have you done the full?
Oh, yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
When did you do your first Tallahassee Marathon?
It was probably, it was actually 2014.
Okay.
We did our first one. Yeah. Okay. It was, and I was really excited because I saw these shirts that said they were in the 330 Club. And I thought, I can be in the 330 Club. And I was for about 16 miles. And then in the rest of the race, I was in the 420 Club as I painfully tried to make my way to the finish line. Yeah. But it's incredibly humbling doing this wrong. But it's very satisfying once you figure it out and able to get it done.
Well, again, I just joined the ranks in 2009. That was my first one. I was training for the half, and a friend dared me to do the full. So I ran 20 miles the Sunday before the marathon, thinking, I better at least do that. So I did. I finished, but it was the flat course. So I think it was, out on the trail and back, and finished at the track. And that was always fun, finishing at the track. And I know there have been a couple different finishing places too, not only where it started or held, but it's finished at the track, it's finished downtown, it's and now it finishes at
College Town.
College Town. That's right.
And that's a really neat environment. I think that having the buildings up around it really makes it a great feeling when you go across. There's a lot of people there, and the restaurants and bars open, which makes it a fun scene.
Yeah, it would be like finishing a race on Bourbon Street.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could do that.
And from a memorable standpoint, and you shared yours too, tell me what y'all thought about the year Meb was here. Remember that? Tell me what your thoughts are about that experience.
I know David Jan was behind that. Meb was very, very, very generous and gracious with his time to come, and I think it was a great opportunity. He went and spoke at some of the elementary schools and did a lot of other things in the community behind the scenes while he was here, as he does a lot around the country. So that was kind of a big plus to get him to come.
Mm-hmm. It's absolute world class having somebody like that be on the streets of Tallahassee. Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the fascinating things about running is that you can compete on the same course really at the same time, although they finish so much faster, with those professionals. And it's really a neat, whereas, Formula One, it's great, but you're never going to drive a car on those courses.
Right.
Whereas with running, you can compete on the same courses as the best in the world. And I think that's just an amazing opportunity. And to have him here and in Tallahassee was just a real treat.
Yeah. I mean, 2014, I towed the same line that Meb did in Boston. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He finished first, and I finished some thousands of places way down the road. But then, yes, he came to our hometown. And I actually saw him last Friday. He was in Tallahassee 2 Fridays ago. I guess he coaches now, cross country somewhere in Florida. But he was out at ARP and with the team. And I just happened to be walking by and saw him and tapped him on the shoulder, and he looked at me, and I shook his hand. I said, "Welcome back to Tallahassee." And he said, "Oh, thank you He's just so polite,
Very polite.
Anyway, so
great person.
Yeah, thanks for that history. And I've had a few great runs here, and I was actually DQ'd at one of our local Tallahassee marathons, and
good for you.
Yeah, I was proud of that moment. I had those little earplugs in years ago, and apparently I wasn't supposed to. But I persevered, Robert.
Yeah, good. You didn't let it discourage you.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So today's race, let's talk about some of those things again, because Felton mentioned one about the course changes. But there are a lot of things that make this race unique, right? And we mentioned a couple already, but I want to give you ample opportunity to walk through some of them from the course changes, the merchandise, because you're wearing it and it looks great, the swag, right? But I know there's some other changes and challenges, but the charitable aspect of the race and the impact locally too. Let's expand upon that.
I think the biggest thing is it's fun. That start line is the culmination of many weeks or months worth of training and focus. And that's really one of the great honors as a race director, is being able to give folks something that they are looking forward to for weeks and months. And that's really the honor and the joy that we're bringing to the planning and putting on this race, is something that's really going to pay off your months of effort and training and giving you a fun, safe, enjoyable experience with your friends. Yes, the course is changed. It's going to start at Leon County Courthouse, like always, and then travel up, take a little jog off Monroe to Gadsden Street and go on out to Thomasville Road. It's some of the most prettiest part of Tallahassee. Coming back through Benton and Midtown and Lafayette, the marathoners are going to make a second lap of Gadsden out Thomasville Road and back. The half marathoners will continue through Cascades Park and then come back through FAMU Way and finish the course in College Town. And we really feel as we've optimized the course for beauty. We've certainly minimized the amount of climbing although it is going to be Tallahassee, so there is some climbing in that beauty, which will just give you more opportunity to soak it in and enjoy the canopy roads and the
Use
crowds.
your arms.
Those hills weren't there when I was directing it. That's all Robert.
Yes. Some of the things that we did need to really go into, there's really 1,000 different variables that you're trying to weigh when you create the course, and the number of volunteers that the course needs to have in order to cover it, and the number of police officers, more from a standpoint of getting volunteers from the different police agencies that are willing to come out on a Sunday morning and be there. And that was the greatest challenge, was that we last year we didn't have the number of volunteers, and the police kind of had to volunteer a few of the night crew, like, hey, we need you. We need you to stay over. And so 13 officers last year were there that had pulled an all-nighter. They were a night crew, and now they were on the course for the day. And so the police just told us we cannot support this type of course. So this year, we're looking at the course. We need 25 fewer police officers, and we actually even need 20 fewer volunteers on the course. Because of the way that the route goes, we still need plenty of volunteers on the course. You are there to direct. You're there to be there to help the runners find their way, because, as you know, Mickey, they got runner's brain, and it's a very strange. They look like the same person, but the person is not really there. They're in some joyland, pain / of like finding themselves, and they are not able to understand what left means. Yes. You just have to kind of point, and it's part of the fun of being on the course and being a volunteer and cheering them. And so we definitely need volunteers out on the course. That you can find at TallahasseeMarathon.com. If you're coming for the race out of town, and maybe your parents are going to be there to watch you, ask them to volunteer and be on that course, because they'll get to see you go by, as well as the other 2,900 participants. Mm-hmm. And they're going to really see and be part of the experience in a fun way. Yeah. Then we do also this year, one of the things that you know from Boston is the store. The Boston Marathon store is, you got to wait an hour or more in line to get there. And then you get there, and of course now you've waited, and you pick up your jacket, and jackets this year are $130, and the shirts are 90 something. It's insane how expensive those things were. And so I didn't know that we're going to have to redo the course at this point, but one of the ideas I thought would be a good one in that moment, was to have really big city clothing. And because we're a nonprofit, we can get the clothing at a discount. We don't need to mark it up, because we're not really trying to make a profit in order to pay payroll, because everybody's a volunteer. And so we can offer big city swag at a nonprofit price and pass the savings on to our participants. And so they can have that token of marathon and that joy of having that marathon jacket to sort of humble brag.
I like it.
When they are going back to their friends and say, that's right. Yeah, I forgot I wasn't even wearing this jacket. Yes, I did the marathon, and this weekend, that's where I was. And so you can have that humble brag moment and not have to pay big city prices. And so we worked with a clothing designer to create custom clothes for Tallahassee that are branded for the area, and we're really excited about being able to bring that to the community as well. Our charity is the Leon County Schools Foundation, and we are benefiting the Title I schools, covering the travel and expenses that would normally be borne by families for participating in track and cross country. And there are expenses that are not covered by the school that the families bear that a lot of families have trouble with, and maybe the difference of whether or not they're able to participate in sports. And so we really want to be able to make that possible for everyone in our community. And so between those programs and running and the support for our running programs here in Tallahassee, that's really going to be where the money goes for the event.
We'll be right back. Hey, friends. I've been a member of Gulf Winds Track Club now since, I believe, 2007. And I became a member is because I was running 1 mile a day, 2 miles a day. And I owe everything to Gulf Winds Track Club to get me to where I am today as a runner. The fellowship, the friendships, the relationships, whatever you want to call it. But, it's also the learning. I got to train with others. I got to ask a lot of questions. I got to witness growth in others, and all because of the club. I've had lifelong friends, and we've traveled to places and done special races, and now my entire family, we're all members of Gulf Winds Track Club. So I invite you to visit gulfwinds.org, become a member too. Now back to the show. I got 2 little boys, and for the first time, one of them's on the cross-country team, and you got student fees or activity fees, but then there's also helping the cross-country team, not being one of the big revenue-producing sports at the school. They need food, they need tents, they need tables and things. So that's awesome that the races, and it's always done that over the years.
I think it's important for people that are not familiar with Gulf Winds or the marathon is that we've had a policy of generally a race director can pick a charity and give away half of the net profits. The other half goes to the Gulf Winds Track Club. And so I think last year the marathon gave away about $30,000 to local charities. The charities can change every year. We're one of the few nonprofits that give away money to other nonprofits or other events. So there's not many organizations that do that. And as the marathon has grown in the last 4 or 5 years, that number has gotten larger and larger.
And that's really the perk for the race director. So the way the club kind of gives back to the race director is the club gives deference on which charity the race director would like to support.
Awesome. And so the board has to approve it.
The board has to approve it, yes. But it has to be an actual charity. But for Corey and myself, we chose the running programs here in Tallahassee, the Title I schools, as really the number one charity that we're promoting.
Thanks for doing that. And so you shared a lot about the course, and thanks for explaining that. Again, I know some of our listeners may want to be a race director one day to understand the challenges there, and I've done a couple. Again, beer miles are real easy. I would suggest that.
Well, let me just put in an ad for that, because it's not just race directors. We have a whole committee, particularly for the marathon. So if anybody does want to get involved, it's not you just have to become a race director. Just reach out, because there's so many different jobs. I think last year we had about 250 volunteers on the course race day, not including police. So there's a lot to be done, and we will gladly take any help for whatever time someone has.
And it's really a lot of fun. It's one I used to, when I was first beginning running, I was like, oh man, it's really going to take away from my running to be a volunteer. But what I found is being a volunteer actually gives you more joy, because you're part of the 1,000 other stories that are being created that day, and you get to be part of that. And so I actually enjoy it more than actually being out there and running the race.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I would ask too, if you share a little more for our listeners who maybe have heard how impactful the cheering sections are, right? And because for me as a runner, that's meaningful. Yes, volunteers, thank you for being out there too, right? And sponsors and all of that. But the cheering sections offer something totally different. Can you speak to that?
Well, we have every year, or for the last 6 or 7 years, a contest for the best cheer stations, aid stations that the runners get to vote on after the race. So, and then those organizations that sponsor a cheer station or an aid station can compete for cash to be given to a charity of their choice. So that's helped that. I think the new course that Robert's come up with this year, because it is a portion of it is going to be 2 loops, you'll be able to see those cheer stations more frequently. and it will be easier to have more people along the course watching this year than in previous course designs.
Yeah, and particularly if you have somebody running the marathon, you'll be able to kind of bounce back and forth between different sides of that loop and see them participating in the course. The other thing I wanted to mention is the relays. And this new course is a lot of fun for the relay teams. I'm very excited because the first two relay exchange points are actually within a few feet of each other. And so as a relay team, you won't have the pressure of trying to get so many different places. And you'll be able to cheer on your runners a lot. The first two relay exchanges are very close to Cascades Park, and then the third relay exchange is out near where Bragg Road crosses the St. Mark's Trail. And the way the routing is, you won't have to drive at all on the actual course of the marathon, whereas last year there was part of the relay that in order to get there, most Google Maps or whatever would route you on the roads that the marathoners were actually running on, whereas this time you won't be at all trying to conflict with the actual race. So I'm very excited about the way that interacts. Then you just have to get yourself to the finish line, and it'll be a lot of fun. And also the way the relay exchange is, you'll be able to cheer on your runner as they come back by. And I'm very excited that the marathon relay teams, and also you only have to run 5 or 6 miles to be on a relay team. And so that opens it up to a lot of people who may not even be interested in running a half marathon on the day, but they can get up and do 5 or 6 miles.
Yeah, and it's a great vibe. I've done the relay now, 3 or 4 times with David Knopf and Katie Sharon, a few others, and having that teamwork and driving around or walking around or moving and cheering each other on is fun. Yeah. Somebody always got stuck with the 9-mile piece, right? There was a one longer piece, and nobody raised their hands for that one. but I liked the relay. It gave us something else to do if we were training for another race. I still got to participate in the day.
Yeah, the relay provides another benefit. As a runner, particularly or a marathon runner, Robert can talk to how many teams we had. I think it was 35, 36, somewhere in there. But it puts a whole lot more bodies out on the marathon course. So prior to having the relay 6 years ago, you ran the marathon, the half marathoners turned off, and you were out there, and there were, there are not as many marathoners as there are half marathoners, but now you've got a whole lot more bodies to chase to see. As a marathoner, you've got to run by all those relay stations, which are a whole lot more people to cheer for you. Mm-hmm. So it does put more bodies out on the course, but I think at the right time, particularly for the marathoners.
Well, and last year we had about 60 relay teams.
60.
And I'm expecting close to 100 this time. And that we're also expecting almost 500 people race the marathon based on current registration numbers. So that will, having 600 people or even 500 people out on a marathon course, there's going to be a lot more activity. There's going to be a lot more.
You're not going to be running by yourself much.
Right. Yeah. And particularly on the first lap, you're going to be with all the half marathoners, right. But they clear out at 6 miles, and then then you have mostly the marathoners that you're running with. So I think it's a neat experience.
It is. Yeah, I've enjoyed the relay. So another thing about the race today, cash prizes. Again, I know it's not all about the money. That's not why we do. But we do have elite runners that come to this race, right? And I don't know if you already know of any that's coming, but for those that are competing at that level, this is unique about our race. We have cash prizes, and it's one of few in this town that do it, but there's a lot of them, right? There's multiple categories. Can you share just a little bit about that, or where we can find more information about it?
Yeah, all the details are at TallahasseeMarathon.com, and yes, we have a professional triathlete and that is coming, and other elite runners. And the prizes are for first overall male and female, as well as Masters winners also have cash prizes.
Okay. And I guess, for us in that Grandmaster category. That's nice to hear, right? Is there an addition for records, breaking the records? No?
We can. Mickey, if you're going to go out there and go get the Grandmaster record,
I don't know about.
I'll put some money out there for you.
That's a no. I'm going to go ahead and say that now. But yeah, I know you mentioned the record 225, something like that. Mm-hmm. That's going pretty fast.
That would be awesome.
That's going pretty fast, and like I say, because the course has changed, there's a huge difference in our flat courses and our hilly courses. So when we talk about records, it's not a clean comparison on the course. We can say who's run the Tallahassee Marathon the fastest. Mm-hmm. But
all right. So I want to kind of open it up a little bit about just marathon and half marathon in general. Talk a little bit about some myths maybe that are out there. Take advantage of the two of you and how many races you've done from a training advice, so if I'm going in, let's start with this. If I'm going in, this is my first marathon, all right? You've only done total how many marathons again, Felton?
77.
Okay, just 77. So what would be a couple key words of advice for a first-time marathoner at the Tallahassee Marathon?
The best advice was when I ran my first marathon many, many years ago. I was 17 years old, and the only person I knew in town that had even run one was Jeff Galloway, who lived here at the time and had been in the Olympics. But he told me, make your first mile the slowest. You've got 25 miles to catch everybody after that, and I've always remembered that, and I've reminded him over the years that he told me that. So I think that's good advice. I think the Tallahassee Marathon, particularly if you live in Tallahassee and this is going to be your first marathon or half, you've got a lot of advantages in that, first of all, you can sleep in your own bed, you can eat your own food and be on your own schedule, so you don't have the travel and the worrying about getting stuck in an airport and all of that. But more importantly than that is, you can go out and train on this course. You can go out and do a long run or a short run, because almost all of the course has sidewalks and accessibility. So you can go out there on a Saturday morning with your buddies and, run part or all, of the course, whatever you want to do. And that's a huge benefit, I think, to be able to visualize a course before you're going to go for a race. So you know what's coming. You know where that hill is. You know how big it is. And, that's a huge advantage, I think, of being local and running this marathon or half.
Yeah, thanks. Robert, anything to add?
Well, I really have run so few and walked so many. It's I don't know that I have any advice other than nutrition. I did, as a new runner, I did not appreciate how important consuming electrolytes and food during the actual race was, and also from being at the finish line. The majority of the problems that people have, to the extent that they have any problems, is that they have not enough salt in their metabolism. And so make sure that there's going to be plenty of aid stations. They're about every 2 miles out on the course. Make sure that you're taking in electrolytes. Get the salt in. Take a goo. We're going to have goo gels out there. And we're also going to have gummies, because that's what everybody wants right now. But the gummies don't have electrolytes. They do have calories, and they're a lot of fun, and they're easy to eat. But the goos and the Gatorade that will be out on the course will keep that salt in your system so that you're able to get through the finish line and finish as strong as you started.
Yeah, big difference.
I'm going to put Robert on the spot for a minute.
Yeah.
But I've always learned that I think it's great to train with the nutrition that you're going to take during the race. So one of the things I would always check is what exactly is going to be on the course. So I don't know if Robert knows the exact – if the brand is goo, vanilla. Gatorade, vanilla.
Yeah, vanilla and Gatorade. Vanilla goo and Gatorade is what we're planning on now.
What color Gatorade?
I think green.
Green, okay. So, that's important to know because – for example, my stomach doesn't handle green or orange Gatorade very well. Wow. Yeah. I like to know ahead of time what's going to be served, because if it's green Gatorade, you should be practicing that in your training to make sure that your body likes green Gatorade and goo. You may have another brand you like, and you
Right.
can carry your own goos. You don't have to get them from the aid station. You can have put your own water or whatever out on the course, not at the general aid stations. But so know your nutrition.
Yeah, nutrition, and which again, I learned more about in the Ironman triathlon world, and y'all knew that, and that's something I had to learn. When I hired a coach, was no, this is a different deal. Like I figured out marathon stuff. It's just goos and drinks. I'm good, right? Ironman's totally different, and so I started the salt tablet piece. It took me one race where I was just out of it, and then I got to do something different. So thanks for mentioning that. And you touched on training. So let's kind of move there too, because I want to hear from both of you. Your advice on marathon training or half, because again, it's a half marathon too. Highlights of training. If you're going to do a marathon, what are some of the things you got to do, or what's something you shouldn't do in training for a full or a half?
I think there's a couple of parts to that question. I mean, if you were talking about the full marathon, if it's your first marathon, just go out there and have fun. Enjoy the day. Same thing if it's your first half. Don't worry about the time. Just go out and have fun. Get some friends if you can to run with you. And if you've worked hard, make it enjoyable. As far as the training, if you're trying to set a PR, it depends on your age and your background. How much have you been running? But I think the one key thing is you got to have long runs. You don't have to necessarily have high weekly mileage, but you got to have your body has got. If you're going to run a marathon, I think your body has to have at least run 20 miles a couple of times, in my opinion, so that you have that experience of being on your feet for longer. The same thing, you just cut the mileage back. But you want a long run. You don't necessarily have to run every day of the week or 2 times a day and all of that stuff, but you need a longer run in there.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest mistake that I've made over and over again is resetting expectations for myself, in that, while I'm training, I might be thinking, just finish would be a great victory for this event. Or maybe talking with a coach, I create, a great finish time that I think would be a fabulous goal. And so that's what I'm training for, and that's what my workouts are set to. And then in the 48 hours before the race, I'm feeling good because I haven't run very much in the last couple of days. And, I'm looking at the course, maybe talking to some other people about what they're looking to do and what their goals are. And so then I change my expectations for myself in that last moment. And then I can't keep that pace and blow up, or even if I don't blow up and I get my original time that I had actually trained for, I'm disappointed because I didn't meet that reset expectation. And so I think be very kind to yourself about the expectations you set, and also just keep with what you trained for. And then if you want to go run another marathon or half marathon next year or 3 weeks, or train for that time. But just that resetting of expectations, it sets you up for a disappointment that you really don't need, simply because it feels good, and I let my ego get in the way.
It's awesome.
And particularly as the race has grown, I mean, if we're going to have potentially 3,000 people on the starting line between the half, the relay, and the marathon. If you're running the marathon, there are going to be a whole lot of people all around you going faster than you want to go, that you should be going. And it's good. The bigger the crowd, the easier it is to get sucked out, going out too fast at the start. And because, with the wide streets and the first mile or two, there's going to be a big crowd. Just like Robert says, run your own race. You're not going to make your race in the first mile, but you can sure screw it up.
That's right. Yeah.
And we will have a mat at the start, so your time will start when you cross the start line. Yeah. And so even if it takes you a few minutes or moments to get there, your race starts then. So go ahead and seed based on making sure that first mile or two is going to be at a right pace. for that first mile or two, and then your race starts when you cross the start line.
Yeah, I mean, negative split is the ultimate, right? If you can do that in a marathon, but it usually takes you a few years to learn how to do that because that positive split happens. You get excited, it's the big day, and you're out there, and then that second half, maybe you start to fall off. So yeah, being patient in the beginning is a big deal. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say, I mean, this is true of any marathon, but if you think about Tallahassee on February 8th in this town, it can be 19 degrees, it can be 85 degrees.
Yeah.
So depending on what you're training, I mean, you've got to adjust your expectations on the starting line. It doesn't matter what you train for pace-wise. If it's 85 degrees, it's a different game.
Yes, you got to adjust.
And realize that in mile 1. Don't wait to mile 16 to figure it out.
Yes, because even 70 degrees in a marathon,
hot.
That's hot because your body temperature, right? And we know that.
Yeah.
I remember, Mev's book, when it comes to expectations, when he said, he tries to develop multiple goals for the day, right? 3 to 5 or something. And since reading that, I've always done that. And whether it be finish or a time or not be injured or whatever, age group, having more than one, so maybe I'm not so disappointed in myself afterwards. I've got 5 chances to meet a goal, which feels, and y'all know, y'all have done these things. Mental is just as much, even more so important when it comes to the day of the race. Because you mentioned earlier, people go sometimes to a place mentally running a marathon. We've all been there, and ultras, if you've done ultras or Ironmans and other things, mentally you've really got to stay in the game. Right.
And I'm out there a lot more hours than you are, so I have a whole lot more mental games I got to play.
Nice. That's a good transition. Thanks, man. So one question I want to ask, really, because for the two of you, tomorrow, right? So if you could walk out of here tomorrow, you're fully trained, you're ready to go. If there was one marathon that you could race tomorrow, what would it be? Which one would it be and why?
I think I would run Paris. That way I could be at a cafe by lunch and enjoying the rest of the day.
Nice.
I would pick 2. I mean, if domestic marathons, I'll answer it that way. I love the Marine Corps marathon because of the history and the military aspect and all the monuments. That was one of my favorites. My other one, which certainly is not the fastest one, but the Pikes Peak Marathon, where you run on a trail 13 miles up to 14,000 feet and then back down. That was the most spectacular. It was by far the most difficult, but yeah.
Incredible.
Ouch. Yeah, I'm going to skip that one, but thank you. Yeah, great. So before we wrap it up too, just remind everybody, Robert, again, if they're ready to race on February 8th, where can they find all the information they need about the Tallahassee Marathon?
All the details are at TallahasseeMarathon.com. And if you have questions that you'd like to ask us, you can send us an email at marathonteam@gulfwinds.org.
Awesome. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to add, I think it's November 15th, which is this weekend, where the beginning marathon, half marathoning group is going to start meeting. I think it's at Cascades Park. So if you're new to town and want to get with a group, there are going to be multiple pace groups. They're going to actually do some running on the course. Just check it on the website or gulfwinds.org. There are also groups at Forest Meadows on Sunday morning. There are other groups Wednesday night, Tuesday night around town. But check that Gulf Winds training website because there are many, many groups around town that you can join to get speed work, to get long runs in, and make it fun.
And those are incredible groups. Thank you so much for mentioning that because those are wonderful people who are volunteering to be out there because they want to help you run a half marathon and make that possible for you. And that's the other remarkable thing is it's really possible for anybody to go run a half marathon. And it's, you hear about all people tell you that when they find out that you're a runner, it's like, oh, I only run if I'm chased. Well, the reality is, there was nobody more overweight, more out of shape, had never run. I remember I had only run 1 mile during the presidential fitness when I was in 6th grade, and I was the last kid to finish. And here now I can go and run Ironman races only because of training. And those training groups are there to make it a reality for you. If you simply follow what they're going to suggest you to do, those running groups are going to help you have a finish line that you are excited about.
And make it fun.
Fun.
You'll meet some great people. It's fun. In Tallahassee, all the training groups are free. A lot of big cities, there's a charge for that. So, we do have some other advantages.
Well, again, I'm a little biased, but I'm a fan of Gulf Winds Track Club, right? And I've said that before. I wouldn't be where I am today without the club. And social media is great for that because a lot of these groups have their own pages too, and they post their runs. So yeah, go to the website, go to all the social channels, and get out there. And for our listeners, I am sure today they came away with some education, maybe a little entertainment, but certainly some encouragement to get out there and sign up for the Bank of America Tallahassee Marathon half or relay. It's coming up in February. And it's been a pleasure to spend this time with the two of you on the We Run This Town podcast, official podcast of Gulf Winds Track Club. Until the next episode, everybody take care. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of We Run This Town podcast, the official podcast of Gulf Winds Track Club. For more information on the club, whether that be membership, upcoming races, or to listen to more episodes, visit gulfwinds.org. Remember, whether you're an elite runner or a beginning runner, together we run this town.